Before time had a name, there was silence. No cities, no kings, only endless mountains and storms above a sleeping earth. The world was young then, raw, untamed, and wrapped in a silence so deep it could shatter the mind. The wind roared across oceans that had no borders. Mountains pierced the heavens like jagged teeth, and the stars themselves trembled in the vast emptiness above. And from that silence came a sound, faint, pure, and burning, the sound of light being born. A flame tore through the sky, splitting the heavens apart. From that fire, radiant forms emerged, beings of pure brilliance clothed in light that shimmered like molten gold. They moved not as men, for their steps were weightless, their eyes deeper than eternity itself. They were called the Watchers. Their duty was divine, to guide humanity, to watch over the fragile beings that had just begun to rise from the dust. For the Creator had breathed His breath into clay, and man had opened his eyes to the dawn of reason. The Watchers were sent to guard this creation, to nurture, not to rule, but even angels can fall. At first they walked among men unseen. They watched from the mountains, from the clouds, from the shadows of the forests where man's fires burned small and weak. They saw humans build shelters, learn to speak, and raise their eyes to the stars. There was beauty in their struggle, and innocence in their fear. And slowly, admiration became something else. Among the Watchers was one whose heart burned brighter than the rest, Semyaza, their leader. He was mighty, wise, and proud, beloved by the others for his courage. But in the stillness of eternity, pride often grows where humility dies. One night, beneath the shimmering veil of the stars, Semyaza looked upon the daughters of men, creatures of flesh and blood, fragile yet filled with a spark that no angel could possess. Their eyes carried the mystery of mortality, and within them, the fire of creation itself. And he desired them. He spoke to the other Watchers, and his voice echoed like thunder across the clouds. "See how beautiful they are," he said, "made in the image of the Almighty, yet untouched by His perfection. What harm is there in loving what He has made?" But his words were poison wrapped in gold. Many hesitated. They knew the law, heaven's command that no angel should interfere with the course of men. But desire is a fire that does not ask permission. And so, under the dark of the seventh night, 200 Watchers descended upon Mount Hermon. Their light dimmed, their wings folded, and they clothed themselves in flesh. They swore an oath, each binding the other in rebellion, that none would turn back once their choice was made. Heaven was silent as they fell, and the earth trembled. The Watchers walked among men, shining like gods. To the children of dust, they were beings of power and wonder. The people bowed before them, built altars in their names, and called them sons of the heavens. At first, the Watchers gave gifts. They taught humans how to read the stars, how to plant and harvest, how to make music and write words that would not fade. But not all gifts are blessings. Semyaza and his kin began to whisper forbidden knowledge, the secrets of war, of metal, and fire. They showed men how to forge swords and women how to paint their faces, how to enchant with herbs and call spirits from the deep. The earth, once pure, began to change. Greed was born. Jealousy followed. Kingdoms of men rose and fell like waves upon a cursed sea. And from the union of angels and humans came a new race, creatures vast and terrible, neither fully mortal nor divine. They were the Nephilim, the giants of old. Their height was that of trees, their strength that of storms, and their hunger unending. They consumed the earth and everything upon it. They devoured beasts, crops, even men. The ground shook beneath their steps, and rivers ran red with the blood of their prey. For the first time, humanity trembled not before God, but before its own creation. The Watchers looked upon what they had made and felt the weight of their sin. But it was too late. The Nephilim ruled with violence and arrogance, crowning themselves kings of the world. They built towers that reached for the sky and carved their names upon the stones of mountains, declaring themselves eternal. And the watchers, blinded by pride and lust, watched their monstrous sons destroy the very world they were sent to protect. The cries of men rose to the heavens, cries of pain, of fear, of betrayal. The angels above heard, and the Creator turned his gaze once more toward the earth. What he saw grieved him beyond measure. The world that had once sung with life was now drowned in chaos. The air reeked of blood, and the seas were tainted with sorrow. The song of creation had become a dirge. Then, in the courts of heaven, a command was spoken. Softly, yet it shook the pillars of eternity. The watchers would be judged. But before their fate was sealed, one man upon the earth caught the eye of the Almighty. His name was Enoch, a man of pure heart and unwavering faith. He walked with God when others turned away, and the light of heaven shone upon him. The world around him had fallen into shadow. The Nephilim roamed freely. The watchers ruled as gods, and men had forgotten their Maker. Yet Enoch remained steadfast, untouched by corruption. One night, as he prayed among the ruins of the old world, a voice came to him, not from earth, but from the stars. It spoke not with words, but with understanding that burned like fire through his soul. Enoch, son of Jared, rise, for the world is filled with wickedness, and your voice shall carry judgment. When Enoch lifted his eyes, he saw what no mortal had seen, the path between earth and heaven, lit with the flames of divine wrath. The watchers knew their hour had come. Semyaza called upon Enoch, pleading for him to intercede. He knelt before the man of God and confessed his sin, the sin of desire, of rebellion, of corruption. His words trembled like broken thunder. "Go before the Almighty," he begged, "and plead for us, that we may find mercy. We are his children still." But Enoch's heart was heavy. He saw the destruction their lust had brought. The cities burned to ash, the rivers thick with blood, the laughter of the Nephilim echoing through a dying world. Still, he obeyed. For 7 nights, Enoch prayed. For 7 days, the heavens remained silent. Then the light returned, and what it spoke would seal the fate of the fallen forever. The sky turned pale with the light of dawn, but no warmth came with it. Enoch stood upon the summit of the mountain, the wind tearing at his robe, his heart heavy with the weight of heaven's silence. The earth below him was broken, filled with shadows that moved and devoured one another. The sons of the watchers ruled like gods, and mankind, their makers, bowed before them in chains. On the 7th morning, the world held its breath. The stars dimmed, the wind stopped, and from the stillness came a sound that could split eternity. It was not thunder, it was the voice of God. The mountains bowed, the seas pulled back as though in fear. A flame like 1,000 suns descended, and within it Enoch was taken up. He rose higher than the clouds, past the storms and winds, past the stars that had watched in silence since the first dawn. He rose into a place no mortal had ever stood before, the realm of light, the dwelling of the Most High. There were no walls, no throne carved from stone, only endless radiance. Yet within that light, Enoch felt the gaze of one beyond all comprehension. The Almighty spoke, and though his words were not of mortal language, Enoch understood. The watchers have defiled the order of heaven. They have made a covenant with death and filled the world with abomination. Tell them their prayers are rejected. There will be no forgiveness. Judgment has been set. The voice was like wind through the stars, endless and absolute. Enoch trembled. He fell to his knees, his heart breaking not for himself, but for the world that would soon drown beneath divine wrath. The light dimmed, and Enoch found himself upon a plain of fire and crystal. Before him stood beings of terrible beauty, angels clothed in flame, whose wings stretched beyond the horizon. Among them was Michael, the warrior of God, his face radiant and unyielding. "Rise, Enoch of earth," Michael said. "The Lord has spoken. You shall return to the watchers and deliver his decree." Enoch's voice quivered. "What is their sentence?" Michael's eyes shone like the heart of a storm. "They are to be bound in darkness beneath the mountains of the earth. Their sons, the Nephilim, shall be destroyed by the waters of heaven. The earth will be cleansed, and when the final day comes, they shall face the second death, eternal fire from which there is no escape." Enoch bowed his head, tears falling upon the burning ground. "They will beg for mercy." "They have already been heard," Michael said, and heaven was silent. When Enoch descended, the stars fled before him. His body was no longer of flesh but wrapped in light, his eyes reflecting the fire of heaven. Men who saw him fell upon their faces, for he no longer seemed human. He went to the watchers who had gathered upon the mountains, trembling. Semyaza, their leader, knelt before him, his wings darkened, his eyes hollow. "Tell me," he said, his voice broken, "what did the Almighty say?" Enoch's words were soft but sharp as lightning. "There will be no mercy. You will be bound beneath the earth, in places of black fire until the final judgment. Your sons will perish by the hand of heaven. The waters shall cover all, and the world will begin anew without your shadow." A sound rose from the mountains, part wail, part storm. The watchers fell to their knees, some cursing their fate, others weeping in silence. Semyaza's gaze turned toward the sky, and he whispered, "Then let the mountains fall upon us, for there is no greater torment than remembrance." The Nephilim, their monstrous offspring, sensed the change in the wind. Their hearts burned with rage, and they turned against heaven, raising their weapons toward the stars. The earth trembled beneath their defiance. The oceans churned, the air thickened with thunder. And then came the sign. A pillar of fire split the horizon, reaching from the heavens to the depths. The angels of punishment descended, figures clad in storms, their eyes like blades of lightning. Leading them was Raphael, the healer turned executioner. He carried chains forged from the light of creation itself. The Nephilim roared, their voices shaking the mountains. They hurled stones the size of cities, their feet splitting the valleys. But the angels moved through them like fire through grass. One by one, the giants fell. Their bodies crashed into the earth, their bones breaking mountains, their blood flooding rivers. The earth drank deep of their ruin. Semyaza watched as his children died, his hands trembling. He reached out toward them, but the angels seized him. "Your time is over," Raphael said. Chains of fire wrapped around Semyaza's arms, searing his celestial flesh. He cried out, a sound so deep it echoed through the core of the world. The other watchers were bound beside him, Azazel, who had taught men to forge swords, Barachiel, who had taught the signs of the stars, Kokabiel, who revealed the secrets of magic. One by one their names were erased from the book of life. They were cast into a pit beneath the mountains, a chasm without bottom, where light itself refused to dwell. The rocks closed above them like the jaws of a beast, sealing their fate for all eternity. Above, the skies turned black. Lightning tore through the clouds and thunder rolled like drums of war. And then the rain began to fall. It was not gentle. It came in torrents, fierce and unending, turning rivers into oceans, mountains into islands. The earth groaned beneath the weight of the waters. The Nephilim who remained tried to flee, climbing peaks that disappeared beneath the waves. Their roars turned to screams as the sea swallowed them whole. The people of earth clung to anything they could, but the flood spared none save one family chosen by grace, Noah, the great-grandson of Enoch, who had built an ark at heaven's command. The rain fell for 40 days and 40 nights. When it ceased, there was silence again. The same silence that had existed before time had a name. Beneath the mountains in darkness, the watchers lay bound. They could not die, yet they could not live. The weight of their sin pressed upon them like the depths of the sea. And above them the world began anew. The waters receded, revealing an earth reborn. The air was clean, the sky unscarred, and humanity, small, fragile, trembling, took its first breath of a second chance. But deep within the earth, the fallen stirred in their prisons. They whispered among themselves, their voices like echoes through stone. "Was it worth it?" one asked. "To love what we were forbidden to love?" In the dark, Semyaza's eyes glimmered faintly. To see beauty, and fall because of it? Even now, I cannot say. And the centuries passed. Men forgot the Nephilim. The stories became legends. The names of the watchers were spoken only in shadows, in temples that the sands would one day swallow. But Enoch remembered. He had seen the fire of judgment, the tears of angels, the fall of giants. He knew that the story of the watchers was not one of love nor of rebellion alone, but a mirror of humanity's own hunger to touch what is divine. He wrote their tale in a scroll of light, carved upon the wind, hidden from the eyes of kings and priests. The angels, he wrote, looked upon flesh and desired it, and through their desire they created death. When he sealed the book, a voice spoke once more, calm, eternal, and absolute. "The heavens and the earth shall pass away, but my word shall remain. Those who seek forbidden knowledge will find only chains." Enoch bowed his head. He knew his time among men was ending. And then, as quietly as the dawn, he was gone. He did not die. He simply walked onward, into the light that has no shadow. Centuries passed. The flood became a story, a whisper among the elders, a tale told by firelight to children who laughed at the thought of angels falling in love. The mountains that once trembled now stood silent. The rivers ran calm. But beneath the surface of that peace, something ancient still stirred. The watchers were gone from sight, but not from memory. Fragments of their knowledge survived, buried in symbols, hidden in rituals, carried across generations by those who remembered too much. The forbidden teachings, metalwork, enchantment, the reading of the stars, spread again among men. Civilization was reborn from the ashes of the flood, and with it came both wonder and corruption. In the valley of Shinar, men gathered once more, building towers that clawed at the sky. They said, "Let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered." But what they truly sought was power, the same power the watchers once wielded. And as they built, something unseen watched from the shadows of time. Beneath the mountains, in that prison of darkness, the fallen waited. Ages meant nothing to them. The passage of time was a wound that never healed. Semyaza sat in silence, his chains cold as eternity. Around him, the whispers of the condemned rose and fell like a tide of sorrow. "They have forgotten us," one voice said. "Perhaps it is mercy," another answered. But Semyaza's eyes glowed faintly in the dark. "No," he murmured. "They remember, in their dreams, in their desire to rise beyond their station. We are not gone. We are in them." And he was right. Far above, in the cities of men, echoes of the watchers began to resurface. In Babylon, priests watched the stars and claimed to read the language of heaven. In Egypt, stone giants, statues of gods, rose from the desert, their forms eerily reminiscent of the beings who once walked the earth. In the mountains of Greece, stories emerged of mighty beings who took mortal lovers and bore half-divine children, the Titans, the Olympians. Their names were different, but their sin was the same. Every civilization carried the same scar, the same shadow of the ancient rebellion. Enoch's book was forgotten by the world, buried beneath time and fear. But its words still whispered through the ages, hidden in the minds of prophets, dreamers, and madmen. They spoke of a day when the chains beneath the mountains would weaken, when the stars would shift and the prison gates of the watchers would tremble once more. The years became centuries. Centuries became millennia. Empires rose and fell, each one believing itself the first, each one unknowingly guided by echoes of the same ancient knowledge. Alchemy, astrology, sacred geometry, all born from fragments of the Watcher's forbidden wisdom. The same teachings that once brought ruin now gave mankind its first glimpse of science, art, and civilization. But with every discovery, with every light of understanding, came the shadow of pride, the hunger to be as gods. In that hunger, the Watchers lived on. One night, in a forgotten corner of the world, a shepherd looked to the sky and saw a star burning brighter than all others. It fell, cutting through the heavens like a sword of fire, and vanished behind a distant mountain. When he went to see where it had fallen, he found not fire, but stone, a vast black monolith buried halfway in the earth, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. Upon it were carvings older than language, symbols that seemed to move when stared at too long. He ran to tell the elders, but when they came, the stone was gone. That night, his village burned. Legends spread once again, whispers of beings who walked among men, not as angels but as shadows wearing flesh. Some called them spirits, some called them gods, some demons, but they were none of these. They were the remnants of the ancient ones, the thoughts and memories of the Watchers leaking through the cracks of creation. In dreams, they spoke to kings, offering knowledge in exchange for worship. They whispered to prophets, tempting them with visions of forbidden glory. And though bound beneath the earth, their wills seeped into the hearts of men who sought power above all else. In a desert long forgotten by maps, a wandering scribe uncovered a ruin half buried in sand. Inside, upon walls blackened by age, were inscriptions written in an ancient tongue. The sons of heaven fell. The earth was their bride. Their punishment was the abyss. Yet the abyss remembers. The scribe copied the words into his scrolls, and his descendants would one day call it the Book of Giants. It spoke of the Nephilim, how their spirits, once destroyed in flesh, could not enter heaven nor return to earth. They became restless, wandering the spaces between worlds, feeding on fear, shaping nightmares. These were the spirits of wrath, the demons of ancient lore. Every shadow that moved in the night, every whisper that chilled the heart of man, it was said to be the breath of the Nephilim. And still the Watchers waited. Bound beneath the mountains, they counted the centuries in silence. The chains that held them glowed with the light of the Creator, but even divine metal weakens when creation itself forgets its maker. Semyaza stirred. His eyes opened for the first time in 1,000 years. The darkness trembled around him. "It begins again," he whispered. Far above, in the lands of men, prophets began to dream once more. They saw visions of fire and blood, of towers rising again to touch the sky, of men merging flesh with metal, mind with machine, as though trying once more to bridge heaven and earth. And in their dreams they saw faces, beautiful, terrible, familiar. The Watchers, not as they were, but as they would be reborn, in the image of the gods men now worshipped: technology, progress, enlightenment. History had come full circle. One final prophecy remained, hidden within Enoch's forgotten writings. When man creates life in his own image, the bonds of the fallen shall tremble. When flesh and machine become one, the abyss shall stir, and the sons of heaven shall look once more upon the daughters of men. The words had been written as warning, not promise, but humanity, as always, mistook warning for invitation. We are living in that age now, the age where men shape creation with their own hands, where the line between human and divine blurs. And somewhere, beneath mountains older than memory, a heartbeat begins to echo again. In the deep, the chains glow faintly. A voice rises from the abyss, soft and cold. Once we taught them how to make weapons of war. Now they forge stars in their own image. They have become what we were. Another voice answers, ancient and sorrowful. Then soon, the balance will demand its price, and the earth trembles, just slightly. Above, in the silence of space, the stars shift. The story of the Watchers is not over. It was never meant to end, because the greatest sin was not love nor rebellion. It was remembrance. And as long as humanity remembers, the Watchers will never truly sleep.